Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Footy Travelers podcast.
Fellow Footy Travelers, welcome to the Footy Travelers podcast, another great episode. I am joined, as always, by my fellow Footy Traveler, Mike. What's happening? What's going on in Baltimore, Mike?
What up? What's going on? I'm doing great. I feel like I'm a guest to Baltimore now. I'm back on the traveling ways. I've been on the road, so it's nice to be home though, and see your lovely face as always.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, good to see you recently. Mexico City. What a great trip that was.
That was fantastic. We had ourselves a very good time. I think we are now locals, or at least people think we are. So That's half the battle.
My language skills are improving like muy poquito each time. So maybe 20 years I'll be a local. But we're going to welcome the Club 11 crew today on the podcast. Gentlemen, we got Gabriel, Pablo, Justin, and Tyler. I think there's even more in the group, but these guys have been all over the country in the recent past. We're going to talk about what Club 11 is, their soccer Odyssey project. Spoiler alert, it's not just a bus. You may have seen that during Club World Cup. But gentlemen, please give yourselves a warm welcome and a round of applause for being here, all four of you right now at once. The most guests we've had on the Footy Travelers podcast. Gabriel, let's start with you. Just a little intro to yourself. We'll run down the line. But yeah, where are you at? Where are you joining us from?
Awesome. First of all, just thank you guys for having us. Really, really appreciate it. I'm in Orlando today, so I'm based out of Orlando.
Yeah. Before Pablo goes, I'll mention I'm not in, obviously, my usual space. I'm in Miami, so we're sharing Florida together tonight. But yeah, Pablo.
Yeah, I'm in Boston, at least now for, I guess, flying out tomorrow to go to Pittsburgh and then go to Knoxville. So lots of travel in the horizon. Yeah. And I feel kind of like Mike mentioned, it's like I've been away from home for so long that you feel a little bit of a guest now too, returning to your city. But yeah, calling from Boston, and I'll kick it over to Tyler.
I am also based in Boston, but I think I've seen Pablo more not in Boston the last 6 weeks or so. We've been more familiar with each other not here, even though we live 0.7 miles away from each other. And I think Pablo is just running from the cold in general. He's not suited to live up here, honestly, as a human being.
Snowbird.
Literally. He's trying to be a week by week snowbird.
It's the season that heads south. So yeah, good on you, Pablo. And Justin, what's happening, man? People might recognize your face quite a bit from some things online.
Yeah. Bus driver, I guess, is one of my titles this year. And I ran from the cold. I've always been away from the cold. I'm born and raised in Orlando, and I'm still here. So me and the bus down here keeping warm during the winter months.
Let's start with the question for our listeners who may not know you all. What is Club 11?
Yeah, let Pablo, our editor, take it from here.
Yeah, where to begin? But I think, probably going back to 2018. At first, it was just, my brother and I in just our college dorm in the University of Maryland. Gabe was super into photography. I really enjoyed writing, and it was when Wayne Rooney had just arrived to the city to play for DC United. So Gabe applied for a credential to go and shoot. It was the first. He had never shot a professional game before or anything like that, but he was able to get accepted and he got in. And then for me, I really enjoyed, again, kind of writing and telling all these stories about the game. And that's kind of how the page got started, a place for, Gabe would kind of upload his photos there. I would write a little story about any of the players that he was shooting or anything related to the match days. And then from there, pretty organically, different photographers or writers and people that just wanted to tell stories within the game in North America just started reaching out of like, hey, I'd kind of like to do the same in my own community and kind of highlight all the things that are happening in my own backyard. So then the page just kind of naturally evolved into this place where different contributors were, sending in photography or sending in different stories from all the things that were happening in their own communities. And then, I think by the time the pandemic hit, we were in 10 different cities covering MLS, NWSL, USL. And a lot of it was just focused on match day stuff. But then obviously when the pandemic happened, it was like very tough to have the same access that we had up until that point. Sometimes the photographers had to be like way up in the stands, couldn't be on the field. So it was just a little bit different to what we had been used to. And it was at that point when we were just like, okay, how can we continue to be involved with the sport here in North America, but try something a little bit different aside from just the match day stuff. So that's kind of when we started reaching out to different athletes to do profile stories with them. Again, players in MLS, NWSL, USL, and that's kind of how we started telling all these stories of the players, and then eventually of people who were just doing cool things in their own communities for the sport. And then, so then it was kind of like a combination of match day stuff with then editorial stuff. And then eventually in 2022, when we were about to graduate, that was, kind of find ourselves in the position of like, okay, so like, what do we do at this point? Because up until then, it had only just been like a passion project that we had been doing throughout college. But then eventually we started getting, different jobs, different gigs with, brands, teams that kind of enjoyed the storytelling that we were doing up until that point. So we were able to kind of start our agency arm as Club 11. So that's kind of how things exist at this point in Club 11 is our brand side of things, and then the agency stuff, which is things that we kind of do like behind the scenes, but helps, keep the lights on, pay our bills, and all of that fun stuff. And then, of course, now in 2025, kind of on the lead up to the World Cup in 2026, we just thought like, okay, we've been telling all these stories for the past 6 or 7 years, but we started as Club 11 Mag, and we've never actually had a print magazine before. So that was kind of the inspiration behind this year. It was like, okay, like let's finally put out a print magazine. So we thought about it as like, yes, 11 stories that we think encapsulate the best parts of soccer in North America, or specifically in the US. So it was stories with, players in the NWSL, the USL, the national team, referees, executives, and kind of try to paint a complete picture of what everything looks like right before the World Cup, and kind of have it as like a little time capsule. So, years down the road, we can all look back and read this magazine and just kind of see like, okay, this is where the sport was, right before this moment where everybody always says, yeah, things are going to change, and, all of that. And then, of course, to just take this magazine to different audiences, different communities around the country, we thought like, hey, how can we come up with something even crazier? And that's when the story of the bus kind of comes in, and maybe I'll let Justin tell that part, just to so he can kind of give a little bit more background in terms of all that.
Sure, yeah. And Justin, before you hop in, just for everyone's edification, who's watching this on YouTube and kind of tracking Pablo's explanation. So we go from a digital online presence, but calling yourselves Club 11 Mag, finally decide to get the mag going in real physical form. You guys were gracious enough, Gabriel, I got to give you the props for this, but sending us our very own copy right here, Club 11, issue number 1, the Soccer Odyssey. It's with me in Miami. It's been a little worldwide. You're gonna see some social media soon enough, I guess, or maybe you'll already have seen this if we put the episode out after that. But the Soccer Odyssey becomes this bus tour, and I want to say it's to promote the mag. Justin, explain all of that and how that sort of comes together.
Yeah, super simple explanation, of course, of how we ended up buying a bus from a magazine. But basically, it's the idea of like selling a magazine in 2025. It's a bit of like a risk, and I think we all knew that going in. So it's like, how do we make something that like bigger out of this to get people excited about it and get people like buying the magazine? At the end of the day, like we worked so hard on it, like our favorite thing is seeing it in people's hands. And so what better way to do that than physically going to these places where we've already done the groundwork of finding the what we call the soccer sickos, and going there and handing it to them in their hands and letting them look through it themselves. And so the year prior, Pablo and Tyler had done some traveling to go see the Open Cup in North Carolina. And when we first started, we were like, oh, let's do it the Club World Cup. And then conversations went on and we're like, wait, no, like the Open Cup is exactly like what Club 11 is about. These are the real fans, like the soccer sickos that we know and love, that will really appreciate like what's in this magazine. And so a few conversations later, Gabe and I are on Facebook Marketplace looking at buses, and we went out, visited one, and we thought it was the one. They drove it off out of the driveway, and the engine just didn't work. So then that was out. Like we're like, all right, well, we got to start this search over again.
Yeah, it was the one. It was just the wrong one.
Yeah. It was the wrong one, but we didn't let that slow us down. Like a week later, we found another one, and it was out on the east coast of Florida. So we drive out to this little beach town, and in the car, we were just like having conversations of like, oh, like, I don't know, this one has like, it might be too like big, or like there might like the inside doesn't look right. And we turned the corner to see, like, go down to the road to see the house that we were visiting. And Gabe's like, this is it. This is the one. Before we even stepped out of the thing, like out of the car, he knew like that was it. And so we went out there and we talked to the couple. It was an old retired woman, and she was like, yeah, we took it all the way out to Utah. Like we've lived in it for a couple years, and we're just like ready to downsize on it. So I took one test drive of it, and I was like, yeah, it feels great. Like never driven a bus before, but I'm assuming like, you know, the wheels were turning and everything was looking good. So I was like, yeah, like we'll come back for it for sure.
Did you kick the tires?
That's where we went wrong. But
some foreshadowing, I think.
Yeah, a little bit of foreshadowing there. Did not kick the tires, maybe should have. But we were just like, at the time, everything was moving so quickly. Like I'm pretty sure like maybe a week or two after that, we were in Italy filming with Tim Weah, like one of the stories for the magazine. And so it was like, at the same time, we're getting this bus, building out all this promo. We're still writing all these stories. Pablo's writing all these stories. We're shooting stuff up to the last month. There he is right there. Signature on the bus now too. Over those next couple months, so that was like November, December, and January, we renovated it the first time to make it look like a set for the video we shot, and then took everything out and then re-renovated it into the soccer museum that it is today, which was a horrible decision. We should have just like renovated it once and lived with that, because the second renovation ended up ending the day before we left. I mean, even the day of, I think Pablo and Tyler that morning before we left Asheville for the first round, were still like hanging stuff up in the bus and getting it ready to go. So then, yeah, immediately took off to the first round of the Open Cup in North Carolina. We started in Asheville, but yeah, I'll stop there for now.
What was the next phase for you guys after those first rounds of the U.S. Open Cup?
Yeah, I think definitely the itinerary evolved, and it was so much of like, we have no clue what we're doing, and we'll figure it out we figure out what's going wrong every step of the way, and we just like try to fix it. Like the first round, there wasn't enough light in the bus, and so I cut out the emergency exit and then drilled in like plexiglass on the top, so there's more like sunlight coming through, because the bus would get super dark. And then also in the first round, no one would come in the bus because it was just a random bus. It had nothing on the outside. And people were like, can I come in? Like, what is this? We were so confused, like, guys, like, yeah, that's awesome in here. But no one would come in. So then we got photos and we put them on the outside. We got a foosball table, put it on the outside to get people like excited to come around. So like every step of the way, it was like the most painful learning process of like, we're not like professionals at throwing events. We just like really like soccer, and we made this magazine. But after doing almost like 20 events this year, like we've learned how to like kind of get people excited, get people around it, which has been awesome. But as we started gaining momentum towards the summer, that's when a lot of like the bigger opportunities started to come. Like we put on the Chopped Cheese Classic, and we had like a block party out in Brooklyn that tons of people came out to. We did an event with Bayern Munich. celebrate like their 125th anniversary, kind of like putting one half US soccer, one half Bayern stuff. And that was in Manhattan. I had to drive the bus to the Rockefeller Center, which was a couple days of preparation, practice driving, a little bit of self-talk to get me, ready to go and do that. But we made it happen. And yeah, it just like kind of evolved from one thing to another. And then now I think a lot of people are excited to see it. People see it on the road and will like DM us on Instagram and stuff, saying like, "Oh, I saw you guys on the road." So that's all like exciting stuff. Once people get on the bus, it's like all your worries go away and you like just get to like sit down and listen to these people and like what type of stories they have. And that's, I think the best part is like we've gotten way too much, like we know way too much about American soccer just from looking people in the eyes and sitting there and talking to them for like 30 minutes in the bus, and they pick up one thing, they're like, "Oh, this reminds me of this and that," and then they pick up another thing, and it's like almost like to the uninitiated, it's a great first step into soccer. We can sit there and like teach them a lot about it, especially the early rounds of Open Cup. It's a lot of like parents and stuff coming out with their kids, and then to the soccer sickos, it's like heaven on earth. On earth, they can like pick up something and just like go off about it for 15, 20 minutes.
And so, just for those that haven't actually seen it, can you describe the specs of this bus? Are we talking, full length school bus? Is it like what size is it? Obviously, big enough to do some serious renovations and have a lot of memorabilia in it.
Yeah, so it's a little bit shorter than a full size school bus. It's 27 feet, and on the outside, it's wrapped with like this wooden wrapping that the lady that we bought it from, she did. And like we're like, let's just keep it. Like, this looks awesome. So yeah, it was like a home. There was a bed in the back. There was a kitchen, a sink, a shower that me and my hometown friend from high school just ripped everything out. Like nearly it broke my back doing it. It was a pretty intense process. Learned how to like, do some woodworking. It was all like brand new, but I think it's safe to say like we're all for like ignorant and dumb enough to be like, yeah, we can do that. And like it didn't like scare us off of like, oh, we have to renovate a bus. Like, yeah, we'll figure it out. And like, we're here today and we did it. So it was like, yeah, it's a pretty nice feeling being like, oh, like we were able to say that like, oh yeah, like we can probably do this, and then actually like execute it.
When you say that people kind of step inside and get lost, what are things that people gravitate towards or comment on that makes the bus so magical? Because I'm in my mind, like it sort of has this vibe of like the literal magic school bus, and you step in and it's just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But it's specifically soccer. So how do people engage with it, or what are some sort of common feelings? I know you said that it can bring back a lot of like memories for people, but what is it that's striking those moments of inspiration and memory?
As we progress, we've started working with clubs more for them to contribute some stuff to us, which that helps like a ton, because they'll be able to bring some of their history on that like maybe we're not as privy to, but their fans are like deeply like, passionate about this stuff. I think that was like one of the bigger takeaways when we were with the Washington Spirit, is just like hearing how much like these fans were obsessed with their history. Teams like that with Red Bulls, like, getting to hear a lot about the Metro Stars and all that stuff. We have like pins in the bus that Gabe and I got from like a flea market in Orlando, and it's all like 94 pins. And I don't think the person really knew what they had. We were like there and we saw it and we're like, there's no way. Like it was in this like glass casing to the side, like in the back. And we're like, what? Like, let's just like look at it and see what it is. And then it was all like, we didn't know it was going to be like world, like even soccer related. And we opened up the thing and it was full of like all the pins from the 94 World Cup, which was awesome.
That's so cool.
A lot of people stop by and look at that and we'll just be like, oh my gosh, like I remember we were at this game or that game and in 94. And then they'll see like, some of the older kits, and that, reminds them of those moments. We have the action figures. I don't know, Gabe, that was your collection of action figures, right? You and Kiros.
Yeah. So the MLS, I think it's from technically 97. So it was from the like right after the first season. They put out all these kind of, they're not like bobbleheads, right? I mean, it's just like action figures. But yeah, I mean, some of the things that like I would see people react to the most, honestly, like it would differ from place to place. Like I remember one of the most vivid ones was in when we stopped in DC, like the night before going to Audi Field, like Tyler put up a lot of his like rec league medals. I mean, Tyler, you can kind of describe a little bit more like what those were, but I remember the next day there were at least like 10 people that went into the bus and they saw that like collection of,
Yeah, they were just patches. So like, I don't know, like if you guys played as kids, like when you go to youth tournaments, you would trade patches with the teams you would play. And like my parents live in Virginia, so we stayed with my parents. We had like the bus parked in my parents' driveway, and like they're always like, we have boxes of your old stuff, like can you please take it, as anybody's parents do. And so I was rifling through my old soccer stuff, and I was like, what can we put on the bus that makes sense? And so I had like, a signed DC United ball and stuff like that. And I found my ring of like, I don't know, 50 patches from just local like DMV area youth soccer clubs. And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like, at least for myself personally, if I throw it on the bus, I can see that. And like, oh, that's my thing that I brought to the bus, like from when I was a kid. Like, it's a pretty cool full circle moment. And then, the next day people were like, oh, wait, like I played against Burke. I played against Chantilly. I played against these guys. Like, no way. And I was like, if we were in a different market, it wouldn't have made sense. But because we were in DC, right, like it made a lot of sense.
Yeah, there's something that's happening within, I think, the soccer community that is trying to break away from the digital components. And Pablo, you kind of mentioned it with the print version, but you look at like Panini and like trading cards and jerseys and like historical artifacts and like tangible things are actually, I think they're coming back. And in a big way too. Like businesses are growing around that. Throwback kits and stuff like that are becoming a really big part of the culture. And so I love that it's like continually gradually evolving and growing in its history. Like you're collecting more as you go through all the parts of the country. I think that's amazing.
I think that's been the cool thing with the bus is that obviously there was a lot of stuff that we were able to put on it from the very first stop. So, different jerseys, like stuff that was like, okay, this is stuff that a lot of, collectors or just people will get to appreciate. But in terms of, what you were saying of like the tangible stuff kind of making a little bit of a comeback, like it's so funny. Like, sometimes I like to peek my head inside the bus, see what Gabe and Justin are kind of up to when they're talking to everybody. But, you'll see like, people that are in their 60s, 70s sometimes like come on the bus and they're like fascinated looking at stuff from like the old NASL, like back in the 70s. And then like next thing you'll see like an 8-year-old kid, 6, 7-year-old kid also like going up to the same things, the little toys and like picking them up. And they're falling in love, with the game in the way that I feel like I fell in love with it when I was a kid. Like I remember going through all the Panini stickers, like I had, action figures, like all that type of stuff. And it's cool. Like when I remember of like, falling in love with the game, I have memories of like, just tangible things, like, touching stuff, experiencing the game, like very in a tactile way. So it's like cool to see, like, seeing like, the 60, 70-year-old people that absolutely love all the stuff, but then you see like the younger generation loving it too. And that's a part that I didn't really like expect, I guess, from the beginning of this. I just thought like, most people who will enjoy this will be like maybe people our age or, in their 30s, 40s, and maybe even older than that. But it's been really cool to see that also, like, a lot of kids like love all this type of stuff. And then when it comes to, the growing collection of it, I think that's also to Tyler's example of, the little patches and all that. It's like super cool that like in every stop, like people love to just like, they'll like pull something from their own like attic or basement, or, we've even had people that are like, I have this like signed ball from the team like 20 years ago that's just been sitting in the trunk of my car for that long. I don't have any use for it. If you guys want to just take it down the road, like that's completely fine by me. So it's been cool to see that at all these different stops, like, there's different, supporters that just like leave stuff and kind of donate things to the bus and kind of keep this as like a growing collection and like a growing museum. So I think that's also been really cool to see like how the initial like baseline exhibition that we had now at this point has just kind of like, like grown to an amount where like we can't even put up all the stuff at each one of the stops just because there's not enough space.
There was actually somebody in Portland, I think in Maine, when we went up, and like he looked at, I think it was a San Jose Earthquakes jersey from like the NASL, And he looked at it and he's like, I used to play in that league.
Oh, no, was it the Toros?
I think
The Toros.
No, it was. We didn't have a Toros jersey. He saw the
It was the
jersey. And then
card.
he saw this. Oh yeah, that
The
one.
sticker.
You're right. So he saw the sticker, and he said like, I used to play there. And I asked him like, oh, you like the league? He's like, no, like I used to play like in that team. So Justin and I, like, we went outside and we showed him like the first bumper sticker that we ever put on the bus was like from the Miami Toros. And like from then he just he couldn't believe that somebody had put that on their bus. And he ended up telling us, he played through college. He ended up move to Miami, like when that big boom was happening with soccer down there. And then, he ended his, I guess now his career ended up in the Northeast. He retired there and he's living in Maine now. So it was kind of like a crazy thing to find somebody like in the closest to the most northern point that we've ever been to with the bus, with like an artifact that we got in Miami.
Wow.
So you heard us mention how great of a time our trip to Mexico City was recently. But what we didn't mention was how incredible it was going to the Club America match with our local home fans guides, Manu and Gustavo. They took care of everything, from the transportation to the tacos and beer beforehand, to getting us safely through the gates and into our seats. They even surprised our whole group with our very own Club America jerseys right before the game. Total legends. If you can't join the Footy Travelers for a trip, or you're simply flying solo, and you want to experience match day like a local, check out Home Fans and tell them the Footy Travelers sent you.
I think what's striking me most about this whole bus thing is, it's this piece of present, tangible substance, but it possesses all of these little things that are calls back to the past, these nostalgic trinkets, we'll call them, memorabilia. I mean, it's bringing that previous generation, like a lot of these things you just mentioned predate all of us here, chatting right now. And what I think I want to do is kind of take us and look towards the future a bit. This gave you all especially, but everyone who saw the bus traveling the country and followed you all on your channels and social media, a bit of a view of maybe what we could look forward to in the future, especially this coming summer with the World Cup coming up, to the US, Canada, and Mexico. Before we get to kind of talk about what you all might expect this coming summer, we'll stay a little bit in the sort of present moment. I want to ask, what were some of your brightest spots? What were the most positive things you all saw as the bus traveled the country when it comes to U.S. fan culture?
I can start us off a little bit of just like seeing the Open Cup. I think it opens your eyes to just like how crazy, there is so much culture here that is just like not getting the spotlight I think a lot of these people deserve. And everyone is talking about how they're the best fan groups in the country. And they're like, no, we're the best. And then, no, we're the best. But at this, like, you see them all and you're like, you guys are the same people. Like, you guys are all, like, you guys may hate each other, but you guys are like the reason why this is like working, because you guys all care about this like so deeply. And I think that was like the brightest thing for us is like, wherever you go, like, go down to Naples, Florida, and it's like known as a retirement community. And there's these insane Argentinian fans down there that will cheer the whole game, that may or may not have at our game boycotted the game and just went out to the bus and cheered out there for the team instead of on the field. And then you go to like Boone, North Carolina, there's still the same type of crazy fans out there. And then all the way up to Vermont. Like, I think that was like the culmination of everything was that Vermont game for us, of seeing the USL2 final, the bus being there and seeing that whole entire scene, I think gave us so much hope and so much belief that like we're doing something like right. Like, like these people like really deserve to have their stories shown and get a spotlight on them. And like, I think every day we would go home after the games, like exhausted, but like so excited to look through like Tyler and Pablo's interviews, all the photos, and like actually just like we would talk for hours and hours into the night about like, oh, like this guy had this story. Like they opened up they had this binder that was filled with like arrests from like all their fans would get arrested and they would like put it in a binder and keep it. And then it's like, oh, like this story and that story about the people that we meet along the way, the kids that would come on the bus and want to be like interns, and we would basically like, they'd be like, oh, like we want to hand out posters, and like, all right, we'll give you guys posters, you can go out and hand them out, and like just hoping that like those memories stay with people for a long time, of just like, hopefully at the end of the day that kid can like 20 years down the line be like, oh, like remember that time we went on the bus and had this memory, and then like I fell in love with soccer through that. You can just tell, like, I just get excited by like seeing like that in every city that we go to, like there is so much soccer culture that just like needs to be put a little gasoline to it, and like it'll go crazy, I think.
To answer the question too, what like Justin's getting at is like, no matter the size or scale of the community, I think the consistent thing about at least like really core soccer fan culture and like fan group culture here is like the people are so willing and they want to like share themselves and their community and their team so desperately. Like it's a very much like, oh my God, like someone like is looking at what we're doing. Like we really want to make sure you feel welcome and you feel like you're having a good time and you feel like you're a part of the story, whether it be Louisville or Burlington or anywhere else. I think our takeaway, like once we had like a conversation in this brewery parking lot after the Open Cup final, like amongst ourselves being like, what are our takeaways? And for me, at least, it was like, there's such a, I think, an intentional like foot forward from people who run these supporters groups and are like these not official, officially in charge of anything, but they're kind of culturally the people who help guide and shape the local flavor of supporter culture. It's like, no, they want to make sure that even if you're an opposing fan, maybe the night before they're going to invite you out and like you're going to have a drink, and during the game you're going to cheer against each other, but it's like very, very intentionally like, oh no, like you care about a thing I care about, like let me show you what a good time in Portland, Maine looks like let me show you what a good time in Louisville looks like. Soccer is giving these people a chance to be proud of where they're from and to like give others a place to feel like they belong somewhere and they're welcome somewhere in a time where like institutions largely are receding from like our social construct. It's like, oh wait, soccer's holding us all together of I belong to this local thing and I care about these people, not because I really know like what offsides is, but because I like Joe and I go to the games with Joe. Like that's kind of the whole vibe we learned.
Kind of a question that I'm interested is like, what or where surprised you the most about U.S. soccer? Like, if I was to take you guys aside and be like, okay, you are historians, you are documenting the history of U.S. soccer. Where do you think, or what do you think is a place that kind of surprised you about U.S. soccer as you are going through the country?
Pablo, you want to answer that one? You have the best anecdotal and the best historical knowledge.
Oof. I mean, I think kind of touching on what Tyler and Justin were sharing about, all these different communities around the country. I think like even going into the journey, we thought, I think like Justin mentioned, it was like, yeah, like everybody who's here, like they're going to really appreciate the bus and it's going to be very like community forward and all of that. And I think it was cool to actually like, see the expectation be met tenfold in all these different places. This may be a little bit out there, but what ended up surprising me the most was the last like 2 stops that we did that had to do with MLS, because I think up until that point we had been going to USL 2, USL 1, USL Championship, NPSL as well. So it was like, like we love like seeing the grassroots part of it all, like the community forwardness of it that Tyler was kind of touching on before. And then by the time we got to these MLS teams, my thought was like, oh, okay, like at this point we will be in the top flight. And everybody always talks about, MLS being a little bit like, like too polished and all of that. So I was kind of going in with those expectations of like, yeah, maybe the whole grassroots aspect of it that I really enjoyed of the first like 5 or 6 rounds, like maybe it will be lost by the time we get to the MLS stage. But then, we're in Austin and it's like, you see all the things that you saw in these, like all these smaller teams kind of like be blown up to 100, where it's like, there were 150 people the night before, painting the tifo, attaching the tifo to a net, going in to practice it. And then like right after they're having like, sharing a pizza and sharing tequila with people from the club, like club staff and all of that, which is really funny because one of our favorite memories from earlier in the trip had been in Louisville when we were in a parking lot at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, and we're just having bourbon with the supporters. And then, the VP of, I don't know if it was like marketing or something like that, but somebody like very high up in the club just comes down to that parking lot, and he brings them like, the nicest bottle of bourbon that you could probably get in Kentucky. And he's doing a toast with the supporters and kind of like sharing that. And initially you would think like, oh, okay, like, this is, you can only get this at this level of American soccer. But then it was cool to go up to MLS and then see like, oh yeah, maybe my notion that maybe they're a little bit too polished or maybe a little bit detached wasn't necessarily true. Even further down, like a few weeks later, I had the chance to go to San Diego. And with them, it was also really cool that, again, like it was the first playoff match in the history of the game, in the history of the club, obviously. There was obviously like the club sponsored staff that was going on like right near the stadium. And it was really cool. They had a lot of like, they had like a Mexican band that was playing, and they had all these little like local businesses that were kind of had their own tents and all of that, which was really nice. But then it was like if you walked even further down, like you would go down a hill and go to this like gravel parking lot. And then it's like all the different like supporter groups from the team. They had their own tents, like they're basically grilling stuff out of their own, like out of their trunk, like, making drinks and all of that. And it was a sea of people. Like you could barely like walk through it. A lot of us only see like the stuff that, I don't know, maybe like ESPN or like CBS and all these like, big outlets kind of cover. And it's like, no, like if you go a little bit further down the hill, if you scratch a little bit beyond the surface, like you see like this entire world that just kind of opens up, and it gives you like such a big hope in terms of what soccer can be and what soccer already is in this country.
I think going to Austin was like this amazing culmination of everything, because the fans were just like, a lot of the fans tell us like, we're the best, like I was saying. And like, I was like genuinely like getting like water, like, teary eyed, like seeing them like celebrate a goal. I was like, wow, like it was such a full circle moment for us of seeing technically like the bottom of the soccer pyramid all the way up to like the top. And like, there's so many like people that are so interested in the game overseas, but like in your own backyard, the game is like insane right now, and it's super fun time to be a part of it, I think.
Mike and I have both been to Austin, and we will second the enthusiasm you guys, I think, share about how just passionate and incredible that crowd and those fans are. And Justin, I think you started to say something about water, and then you mentioned Syria. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
The water was from them throwing water, because they'd have
exactly.
a lot of.
Yes, I was going to say there
wasn't
is
sure if it was water or tears.
Exactly.
They love throwing the water when they score goals out of that Gatorade bucket, and which in the hot Texas heat is very welcomed. Really, at any point. Yeah, Mike asked about some surprises. I guess I kind of want to, before we depart too far from the bus story, there was a surprise. Eventually, we mentioned a little foreshadowing, I think, with the tire question. I think you all know what I'm talking about. What was the surprise towards the end of the summer, and how did that eventually get resolved?
Yeah, so it was a long summer. I think I can tell this story probably to the best out of all of us, considering I was the one in the bus doing it. But we were heading out of Boston after a great couple. Like that was the week after we went to Hearts of Pines, and we're like, this is the best day ever. We went to Vermont Green, like, this is the best day ever. And it was just amazing. We were having like such a great time. And we were finishing out that kind of like trip at a Red Bulls game. So we were heading down from Boston to New Jersey. And we had like kind of a day in between where we were going to get to New Jersey, kind of hang out before we got to the game. So just leaving Boston, chill, a nice little chill drive. And we're about like 20 minutes out. And I'm on the phone with my mom. I have my same earbuds I have in right now. And I'm just like telling her, like, this has been off. Like, we went out to Maine. It was crazy. I'm just like kind of keeping her updated, because she sees us out on the road through like social media and like, hey, like, you should call me and, let me know what's going on. Like, yeah, true.
Make sure you call your mother.
Call your mom.
Yeah, exactly. To the audience, call your mother. But, and then bang, like just the whole entire bus just drags me off the road. And the front tire, I get out and the front tire is just like completely in bits behind me. And Pablo and Gabe are following behind in the car, and they just like fly past and then call me and obviously are like, what just happened? I'm like, I think the tire blew up. But So yeah, we're stuck out there for a few hours, or we got a tow truck actually relatively quickly because the police came and were like, you guys can't be here with this. And so they made the decision pretty easy for us of like, you guys can drive it off the highway or we can get a tow truck. And so they basically said, you guys have to get a tow truck, like get it off the road right now. And so they pulled us into this BJ's parking lot. We just left it there. And we were just like stranded in, I forget the city, but a little bit outside of Boston. As the night like went on, we're like calling everywhere to try to find tires, try to find a solution because the game was like the next day and we were running out of time. And as the night is like going on, these like must be high school age kids just like slowly start filling up the parking lot. And, you know, they're slowly getting like drunker and drunker as the night progresses. And as the sun's setting, we separate timeline of like, okay, we found somebody to get tires. The kids are now doing donuts in the parking lot going crazy. And we're just trying to like avoid eye contact at all, you know, at all costs. Like we do not want to get dragged into this. So I think it ended up being like 10 o'clock at night when we got the tires fixed. The tires popped at like 2. And we drove like an hour to find a hotel. We stayed there and we were like, what a day. And the next day immediately got up, drove to New Jersey and made it to the Red Bulls game, which I couldn't believe happened. It was like a Saturday and there was no repair shops open. And Gabe just so happened to like call the national line for the tires. And the guy was like, oh, you guys are in Boston? Like, I actually know somebody like locally there. He gave us the number. If you look up the number online, there's no website. The guy's name is nowhere to be found anywhere. But he came out and like put new tires on the bus. And we're like, what is like, it's the magic of the bus. You know, they said it, you guys said it's not the magic school bus. I think it is the magic school bus. Like
there's
something
magic.
happened. The tow truck driver on the way there or on the way to the BJ's parking lot was like, you're really lucky that didn't flip. Like if you would have pulled the tire the other way, like that bus could have flipped. And so that was a big like moment for us of like, this is real life, you know. This is a lot of fun, but also like our lives are real. So it was a good moment to step back and be like, okay, like let's be a little bit more careful going forward and make sure like things are, you know, being looked after a lot more closely, because at that point it had been a couple months since we got our last like check-in. And it was funny because at the beginning of the trip, it was so like I was so scared about everything. And even just like every sound, I'm like on high alert. And at this point in the trip, it's been like 5 months. I'm starting to like lower my guard down a little bit. And Tyler and I had like this conversation at his house in Boston of like, he's like, oh, like, is it easier driving the bus now? Like, are you more like calm? I'm like, yeah. Like, it's actually like pretty nice. Like, you know, I just like can like listen to the music and, you know, get there pretty easily without worrying too much. And then next day, the tire blew out. And 3 months later, I'm still worried every time I'm in the bus. So.
And I was going to ask if there's any PTSD or anything from it, because, you know, an accident or a crash is not easy to recover from. But I will say, perhaps it was the grace of calling your mother and having some karma that, you know, that bus it didn't turn out as bad as it was. So if this last trip was a dress rehearsal, so to speak, and knowing that the big dance, the important event being next year is there, what's the future? What does the future hold for maybe the bus or maybe even just U.S. soccer culture at large?
Yeah, I think I could maybe speak a little to the bus and then throw it to you guys for the soccer culture. But I think for next year, just like we were saying at the beginning, like a month before we left for the Open Cup, we were going to the Club World Cup and we were like ready to do that and quickly changed plans. So anything we say right now could easily change in like the next few months. But I think obviously the dream is to go and see the World Cup through the bus and have fans, you know, from all around the world get to experience like what we're doing in the bus and maybe try to curate that a little bit more to let them contribute to it and make it more of a global thing, but also at the same time educating these people on the fact that, you know, we have so much soccer history in between our borders as well. And so trying to like toe that line of like accepting, like, you know, making it a global thing, but also like we are all about American soccer. So how do we like put that at the forefront? I think in terms of traveling, we have like big dreams of coast to coast. Will that happen? I think right now, like months and months away, I feel great about it. I think a couple months before I might start getting, a little bit of a different tune as I start thinking back to driving from Austin to Orlando in 2 days and how boring that of a drive that is. But for now, I think it'd be awesome if we started like West Coast, start where the 94 final is at the Rose Bowl, and then end up at MetLife for the final. A lot of miles, but I feel good about it right now.
Yeah.
Keep the positive vibes that you're going to be able to do everything. That'd be my advice for you all, because I think what you're doing is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a healthy amount of ignorance is really beneficial to all of this, of being like, yeah, that's definitely doable.
We can do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of the second half of that question around like, U.S. soccer culture and the expectations going in the World Cup 2026 and the things you are doing right now in between the Club World Cup and the bus and World Cup 2026. I want to kind of add a little bit to this last part of the conversation. You guys are exploring soccer culture in America a little differently than the bus. Talk a little bit about that and maybe what your additional experience doing what you're doing right now. I don't want to give it away. I'll let you guys explain it, but what you're doing right now and how that adds to your expectations around what things will look like next summer. I don't know if Pablo maybe is the best one to answer this or not. But.
Pablo definitely. He's our little celebrity.
Oh my god! What is this for the Premier League stuff? I suppose that's
let's talk about your time at the bar, Pablo. What are you doing at the bar so early?
Yeah, it was. It's funny because that one was just like, I remember the first video that we did of that series. It was like 2 a.m. on a Saturday, and I think I was texting Gabriel. We were just like, like, oh yeah, there's that Liverpool game against Everton that's going on tomorrow. Like, maybe we should do like a video about that. And then we just look at the time, and it's like, oh, the game is at like 7:30 in the morning. Like, so I just texted him. I was like, oh, like maybe. Yeah, if I wake up, I'll go. But before going to bed, I set my alarm and then went there. And then it was like the craziest thing because it was like you would open the door and you could barely walk in. Like it was 7:30 in the morning in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and it was just absolutely packed. So then from there, it was just kind of like realizing like, oh yeah, we had never really touched on Premier League stuff before just because we were so focused on, just like specifically like American soccer and all of that. But then it was just kind of realizing like, no, there's this whole world of, like all these very passionate fans that, if they're on the West Coast, they're waking up at like 3 or 4 in the morning to watch these games. And that's a big part of the story of soccer in this country. It's, obviously a lot of people that do care about the soccer that's going on in their communities, but there's also a lot of people that like, maybe they only care about the Premier League, and will wake up that early to go to all these different places. So that's been one of the cool things now to also explore that side of what American soccer culture can be. And I mean, I think for us, like a lot of the stuff that we do, the work that we do a lot of times just happens at night, when we have to go to a USL game or an MLS game and all that. So it's like we have the morning free to do all this stuff. So it's like, like if we're going to be in this spot, like let's find a Premier League bar and try to go to it and, see what it looks like, what the people are like over there, how they enjoy the games and all of that. But it's been cool because I think like, now even when I think back to the 2022 World Cup, one project that we were doing was going to all these different restaurants of the countries that were participating at the World Cup. So we'd go to like a Colombian restaurant, we'd go to like a Uruguayan steakhouse, Argentine steakhouse, all of that. We even ended up at like the Uruguayan embassy in DC. Like we were trying to go to like a Ghanaian restaurant at like 7 in the morning because the games were like super early then. We'd call them ahead of time and been like, you guys are going to be open, right? And then of course we get there and it's like completely closed. And up until that point, we'd been doing like different people from around the country had been contributing, sending photos from, all these different restaurants around the country and how people were experiencing that World Cup. And that was going to be the first day that we were going to like miss out on something that we're like, no, like this can't be. So we were just taking an Uber back to our dorms. And then the Uber driver, we're just like, Uruguay scores. And then he's like, oh, can I see that? Is it all right if we stop and watch the goal? And we're like, yeah, of course. And then we just get chatting to him and he's like, oh yeah, actually like I'm the driver for the ambassador at the Uruguayan embassy and they're hosting a watch party right now. Do you guys want to go? and then we just ended up like, just at the embassy watch party with the Uruguayan ambassador and the former president of Uruguay, like watching a World Cup game. So I think it's like cool that, like, of course, like you find a lot of soccer at these stadiums or like tied to like games, right? But there's also like this whole culture of like, yeah, like restaurants, pubs, like all these different like watch parties and things that, like, yeah, again, like, that embassy watch party, I would have never heard about it if I didn't, talk to the Uber driver. So there's all these
Right.
other things that are just kind of like happening under the surface that, are cool to explore. So I think when it comes to the Premier League stuff, I'm very excited to see, I guess, like some of the situations that we end up like finding ourselves in, and some of the stories that we get to uncover on that side. But yeah, I think that's kind of like tying it to the Premier League side of things. But I know, like, for all of us, there's also like, yeah, very excited to get to all these USL games for the finals and all that type of stuff. So yeah, always, just trying to find as many stories as we can with soccer. So
There's endless stories.
Of
endless
course.
stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
Absolutely.
one thing that you guys probably have found yourselves, that it's like, you get a little bit of a taste of what it's like to travel and find a really cool story, meet some really cool people, and then it's just like, yeah, like it's almost like being addicted to something. It's like I can't wait until the next journey, the next thing that I get to go to, the next game that I get to experience with awesome people. So so yeah, I feel like that's kind of where
my
we'll
name
find
is
ourselves.
Colin, and I'm
gonna
a
say,
soccer sicko.
First step is admitting it, right?
Exactly. I am addicted to soccer and travel and hearing cool stories. And that's why we're all here. And yeah, I think Pablo, it's a good point. I think there's a lot of focus right now on the ticketing process for World Cup 2026, and everyone wants to get into the stadium and watch it, but there's going to be so many opportunities to experience the energy and passion of global football during the World Cup in 2026, just at your local pub or bar or where have you. So, I guess my message is, don't be too dismayed if you don't get a ticket to a match. Just get out there and go experience it and talk to someone, and maybe they'll know the former president of a country and invite you to a full party.
Never know. You never know.
You
But
never
that's one
know.
also
Exactly.
That's also one thing I'm kind of hoping is that we kind of went to all these different cities throughout the Open Cup that won't be near host cities or anything like that for the World Cup, and it's almost like my hope is that, yeah, like there is something that helps them like experience the World Cup and like get that World Cup fever even to all these different communities. So I'm sure like there's already a lot of different like community organizations and stuff like that in all these places that are kind of already maybe planning ahead for what they're going to do for the summer of 2026. But that's something that I'm very excited to see is, yeah, like how all these different communities around the country that maybe aren't host cities, like how are they going to live it? How are they going to experience it? And what are some of the memories that they're going to make for the rest of their lives?
Well, as everyone, ourselves included, makes our plans for the World Cup, we'll see what they shape up to be. How can everyone keep tabs on what Club 11 is doing? What's the best way to follow you guys and keep in touch and continue to follow the story?
I mean, easiest place, I would say, Instagram. It's handles at ClubEleven, just spelt out. We have, Twitter, X, YouTube, same thing, Club11 TV. YouTube, we try to do a lot more long form, and I would say as of today, that's usually where our bigger projects end up. So the stuff that's like 10 plus minutes or so. And we are working on something to kind of bring all that together, a place where I would say the biggest question we got in the bus that Justin and I had to answer a lot to, and like we didn't really have an answer, was, how can we support you? How can we keep in touch with ClubEleven, further than just giving you guys a follow or, leaving a comment or a like. So we are working on, a platform where like we can do that, where we can bring like that type of support in and also create that community a little further than, like a social media platform or something like that. So hopefully in the next 2-3 months, that'll be out. I'm not sure, I think this podcast will be out way sooner than that. But yeah, for now,
we'll
I mean, for now, the easiest place, Instagram for sure, at ClubEleven. And one last thing, I think the one place where I would say our most interesting stories end up is Pablo's newsletter that goes out every Tuesday morning. It's usually written also every Tuesday morning. Very, very early he's writing. We get messages 3, 4 a.m. And he's like, hey, can you guys review this? And we're like, no, we're asleep. So we end up seeing it when it comes out. But, there's stuff there that I would say like the closest that you will get to the bus from any of our platforms is through that newsletter. I think all the stories that we've heard in the bus, the best place and the most representative place that is similar to that, to that experience that you get in the bus is the newsletter. You'll see stuff from, he's found stories from, way back when, I think there's a story of like an Argentinian team sending a flag up to the moon with Neil Armstrong. Just things that you wouldn't imagine or like have happened, but the connections that you'll find in American soccer history, and also the things that are going on today through this landscape. All of that is packaged into this newsletter every Tuesday. So I'd definitely say, if you want to go that deep into the rabbit hole, it's club11mail.com.
All right. I will say the Footy Travelers are subscribed. Yeah. Good work, Pablo. Are there any copies of the mag still available, Gabriel?
I have 5 left. They are reserved for my grandparents and my uncles that have not gotten it yet.
Okay. Right. If you haven't gotten it yet, you may have missed your opportunity, but will there be an issue 2?
There might. There's something that is coming out soon enough. Or I guess that was the second most asked question that we got in the bus was, where can we buy the jerseys that you're wearing? We actually sold out last year, I think. So we hadn't been able to restock them in time for this bus trip. We had a few in the first few rounds, and I think after round 3 or 4, we ran out. But that's I would say that's like a great way to support if you're into jerseys, and honestly, for us, like to represent the brand as well in the real world. So those actually just came in today. Justin, they got to Justin's place today, and we'll be releasing those, I would say, the next few months as well. So
nice. Okay.
Yeah, those will be
we're working on our next set of jerseys as well. So
there you go.
Stay
Maybe
tuned.
we'll do a jersey swap.
Oh yeah. That's in the cards.
On the bus, that would be sweet.
On the bus?
Oh, I like it. Right. There we go.
Beautiful.
Well, until that day comes, guys, until World Cup 2026 finally kicks off for us, really looking forward to when we can connect in person. But this conversation has been absolutely incredible. It's good to sort of revisit your travels last summer and get ready for this coming summer, get people excited, and I think hear the positive things you saw in American soccer culture as we look forward to the big dance next summer. I don't know, Mike, if you referenced it as the big dance, but I know you're a basketball guy. So,
yeah, I think Trademark actually is probably going to, ding us for that. It's technically not the big dance, but let's be real. It's the biggest tournament in all of sports.
Absolutely. And I guess until fellow Footy Travelers, we see you all and you hear from us next. I'll let Mike take us out as we usually do and just remind you,
be loud, be proud, and be good to each other. Woo!